The Corthani warfleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, with the confidence of a species that had conquered 47 worlds. Admiral Zexhai stood on the bridge of the flagship Times Dominion's Edge *, his 4 eyes scanning the primitive blue-green world that their scouts had designated as Target 48. The planet showed all the signs of a developing civilization. Electromagnetic signatures, crude satellites, and the chaotic energy patterns of a species still burning fossil fuels. Admiral, reported scanner operative Thys, her tentacles dancing across the bioneural interface. The inhabitants call themselves humans. Intelligence estimates their technology level at approximately 0.7 on the galactic development scale. They have achieved primitive spaceflight but remain confined to their home system. Zexhai's mandibles clicked in amusement. The humans wouldn't even rate a full invasion fleet under normal circumstances. The Corthani had sent 300 vessels, simply because the system contained several planets suitable for mining operations. Earth itself would provide excellent agricultural resources once the native population was relocated to designated zones. Broadcast the standard compliance message, Zexhai ordered. Give them 72 of their hours to prepare for integration into the Corthani Empire. Deploy monitoring satellites around their major population centers. The message that reached Earth's governments was transmitted in broken English, Spanish, Mandarin, and Arabic, quoted in languages the Corthani had decoded from intercepted communications. It was polite but firm. Surrender and accept relocation to preserve your species or face extinction. The aliens gave humanity 3 days to respond. The reaction across Earth was immediate and chaotic. Some nations called for immediate surrender, citing the obvious technological superiority of the aliens. Others demanded resistance at any cost. Social media exploded with conspiracy theories, religious proclamations, and desperate calls for unity. Stock markets crashed, then rebounded as defense contractors saw their values skyrocket. President Chen of the United Earth Council stood before the emergency assembly, her hands trembling slightly as she held the translated message. The question before us, she said, is not whether we can win. The question is whether humanity dies on its feet or on its knees. The debate raged for 18 hours before the vote was called. By a margin of 7 votes, the council chose resistance. Meanwhile, in secret military installations across the globe, another conversation was taking place. General Martinez of the America's Defense Force pulled up holographic displays showing the alien fleet's positions. 300 ships, he said to the gathered military leaders. Each one probably carries enough firepower to level a continent. Sir, interrupted Colonel Sarah Kim, the youngest person in the room at 28. What if they're not expecting a fight? Explain, Colonel. Look at their formation. Look at their behavior. They're not taking any defensive measures. They've positioned themselves like they're settling in for a siege, not preparing for battle. These aren't the actions of a military force expecting resistance. They think we're going to roll over. General Martinez studied the tactical display. Kim was right. The alien ships had spread out across the system in loose formations, clearly focused on observation and intimidation rather than combat readiness. Several vessels were actually conducting what appeared to be resource surveys on Mars and the asteroid belt. What are you suggesting? That we hit them before they realize we're going to fight back? Use everything we've got in a coordinated strike while they're still treating this as a police action instead of a war. The plan that emerged over the next 36 hours was desperate and brilliant in equal measure. Every nuclear weapon on Earth would be modified and launched simultaneously. Not at the alien ships themselves. The missiles would never get close enough, but at the space debris field that surrounded Earth. Humanity would turn its own orbital junk into the largest shotgun blast in history. Dr. Elizabeth Cray, the lead physicist on the project, explained it to the assembled world leaders via video link. We have approximately 50,000 pieces of trackable debris in Earth orbit, plus millions of smaller fragments. If we detonate nuclear devices at strategic points in the debris field, we can accelerate this material to incredible velocities and direct it toward the alien fleet. Will it work? asked President Chen. Honestly, I have no idea, but it's better than surrender. The Korthani, meanwhile, remained blissfully unaware of the frenzy of activity on the planet below. Admiral HFY was reviewing agricultural assessments when the first wave of debris struck his fleet. The Times Dominion's edge times shuddered as thousands of paint flecks, metal fragments, and pieces of defunct satellites hammered into its hull at velocities approaching 10% of light speed. The ship's shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and larger projectiles, were useless against the swarm of hyper-accelerated micro-debris. Report, HFY barked as alarms wailed throughout the flagship. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 15, reported his damage control officer. The debris appears to be artificial. Admiral, I think the humans launched their orbital refuse at us. That's impossible. Their technology level. Admiral. Scanner operative This's voice cracked with panic. Massive energy readings from the planet's surface. 57 separate nuclear detonations in their orbital zone. They're launching more debris. The second wave was even more devastating than the first. Humanity had learned to be efficient killers, and their engineers had spent decades filling space around their planet with junk. Now that junk became a weapon unlike anything the Korthani had ever faced. The frigate Times, Sword of Unity Times, simply disappeared in a cloud of sparkling metal as a defunct communications satellite, accelerated to relativistic speeds, punched through its hull from bow to stern. The heavy cruiser Times, Inevitable Victory Times, lost its entire port weapon array when a cluster of old rocket boosters struck its shield generators. But it was the battleship Times, Eternal Conquest Times, that provided humanity with its first real victory. The massive vessel, nearly 2 kilometers long and armed with enough firepower to crack a moon, was struck by the debris field from an entire demolished space station. The impact overwhelmed its shields and tore apart its primary reactor. The explosion lit up the dark side of Earth like a second sun. Admiral HFY watched in growing horror as his fleet suffered damage that should have been impossible from a species that hadn't even achieved faster than light travel. 27 ships were destroyed outright. 63 more suffered critical damage. The remaining vessels found themselves under constant bombardment from waves of accelerated debris that seemed to come from every direction. How are they doing this? He demanded. They're using their star for power, Dice reported, her voice barely steady. Nuclear fusion reactions to accelerate matter. They've turned their entire orbital zone into a kinetic weapon system. With what? Scrap metal and garbage. Scrap metal and garbage moving at significant fractions of light speed, Admiral. The humans weren't finished. As the Korthani fleet regrouped and tried to establish defensive formations, Earth's defense satellites, SPN, the few that humanity had managed to build and launch, began broadcasting on every frequency imaginable. The message was simple, transmitted in the Korthani's own language using phrases they had foolishly included in their surrender demand. You wanted our planet. Come and take it. But it wasn't the words that shook the alien admiral. It was what came with them. Earth's radio telescopes and deep space communication arrays, hastily repurposed as weapons, bombarded the Korthani fleet with focused electromagnetic pulses. The signals weren't powerful enough to cause physical damage, but they wreaked havoc with the aliens' bioneural interfaces and organic computer systems. Ships began drifting out of formation as their navigation systems failed. Communications became sporadic as the electromagnetic assault disrupted their neural networks. The perfect coordination that had allowed the Korthani to conquer 47 worlds dissolved into chaos. Colonel Kim watched the tactical display from the command bunker buried 300 meters beneath NORAD's Cheyenne Mountain complex. Ma'am, she reported to General Martinez, alien fleet is breaking formation. Multiple ships showing irregular movement patterns. Keep hitting them. Launch debris wave 4. The fourth wave consisted of humanity's most creative improvisation yet. Instead of random orbital debris, Earth's militaries had hastily converted their space-based assets into kinetic weapons. Weather satellites, GPS networks, and even the International Space Station's discarded modules had been rigged with small nuclear charges and aimed at the retreating alien vessels. The former ISS laboratory module struck the Korthani command ship's communications array with the force of a meteor impact. The blast severed the fleet's command structure, just as Admiral HFY was ordering a strategic withdrawal. Across the system, individual Corthani captains found themselves cut off from orders and under constant attack by an enemy they had drastically underestimated. Some tried to fight back, sending energy beams toward Earth that lit up the planet's magnetosphere in brilliant auroras. But their targeting systems were compromised by the electromagnetic assault, and most of their shots went wide. Those that didn't hit empty ocean or unpopulated land. Humanity had evacuated its major cities in the hours before the attack began, moving critical personnel to hardened underground facilities. The aliens found themselves shooting at empty buildings, while the real human resistance operated from bunkers and caves. As the 72nd hour of the ultimatum approached, Admiral HFY faced a reality no Corthani commander had ever experienced. His fleet was scattered, damaged, and under constant attack by a species that shouldn't have been capable of meaningful resistance. Nearly a third of his vessels were destroyed or crippled, and the humans showed no signs of stopping their assault. From the bridge of his damaged flagship, with sparks flying from overloaded systems and the acrid smell of burning biocircuits filling the air, HFY made a decision that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. He ordered a retreat. The surviving Corthani vessels began pulling back toward the edge of the solar system, still under bombardment from waves of accelerated debris. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, Scanner Operative Thys delivered one final report that would haunt her admiral's dreams. Energy readings from Earth are increasing, Admiral. They're preparing another wave. And, sir, they're launching new objects. Not debris. These appear to be purpose-built kinetic weapons. Admiral HFY didn't wait to see what else the humans had prepared. The surviving ships of the once mighty Corthani fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of their fallen comrades and the shattered remains of their assumption that a 0.7 civilization posed no threat to galactic powers. Behind them, Earth continued to burn with the lights of a species that had just discovered it could fight back against the galaxy and win. The news of the Corthani defeat spread through the galaxy like wildfire through dry grass. In the crystal halls of the Viridian Collective, in the biodomes of the Aquarian League, and in the crystalline cities of the Ethereal Dominion, the impossible had happened. A pre-FTL species had not merely resisted a galactic power, it had won. Admiral HFY stood before the High Council of the Corthani Empire, his once proud uniform now bearing scorch marks and battle damage. The council chambers, carved from living stone and pulsing with bioluminescent patterns, had never before heard a tale of such humiliation. "You retreat from primitives," hissed Counselor Prime Vorthan, his serpentine head swaying with barely controlled rage. "You lose 1/3 of fleet to species that burns dead plants for energy." "Honored, Counselor," HFY replied, fighting to keep his voice steady. "The humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They weaponized their orbital debris. They turned garbage into kinetic weapons moving at relativistic speeds. Their electromagnetic attacks disrupted our bio-neural networks in ways our shields were never designed to counter." "Excuses," snapped another counselor. "The Empire demands vengeance. We will send 5 fleets, 10 fleets. We will reduce their world to molten slag." But even as the words were spoken, reports were coming in from across the galaxy that would change everything. The Viridian Collective's deep space monitoring stations had detected something unprecedented in the Sol system. The humans weren't celebrating their victory, they were preparing for war. Dr. Elizabeth Cray stood in the rebuilt command center of the Earth Defense Force, surrounded by holographic displays showing construction projects that would have been impossible just months before. The victory against the Corthani had done more than prove humanity could fight. It had united the species in a way nothing else ever had. "Report, Dr. Cray," requested General Martinez, his weathered face bearing the stress lines of a man who had aged 5 years in 5 months. "The orbital defense grid is ahead of schedule," she reported, gesturing to a 3-dimensional map of Earth's space. "We've built 17 kinetic bombardment platforms using salvaged Corthani technology. Each platform can accelerate payloads to 15% of light speed. And the long-range projects? Project Longbow is operational. We've established kinetic weapon platforms around Mars, the asteroid belt, and Jupiter's moons. Any hostile fleet entering the outer system will face a gauntlet of accelerated mass weapons before they get within 1 billion kilometers of Earth. But the humans had learned more than just new ways to throw rocks at their enemies. Colonel Sarah Kim, now promoted to Director of Xenological Warfare, had spent the past months analyzing every piece of Corthani technology they could salvage. Their bioneural networks are their greatest strength and their greatest weakness, she explained to the assembled Earth Defense Council. The Corthani think faster than we do, react faster, coordinate better. But they're all connected. Every ship in their fleet shares a neural link. Which means, asked President Chen, which means we can turn their own network against them. I've been working with Dr. Nakamura on something we're calling a viral logic bomb. If we can inject it into their command networks during the next attack, we can potentially take control of their own ships. Dr. Kenji Nakamura, Earth's leading expert in artificial intelligence, pulled up his research files. Human cognitive patterns are apparently incompatible with most galactic neural networks. We think chaotically, unpredictably. Our thought patterns may actually function like a computer virus in their systems. The plan that emerged was ambitious beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. They would not simply wait for the next alien attack. They would prepare to capture enemy vessels and learn their technology. Every defeat would make humanity stronger. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other species were taking notice of the small blue world that had bloodied the nose of a galactic empire. The ethereal Dominion, ancient enemies of the Corthani, sent secret envoys to establish contact. The Aquarian League began monitoring human communications with growing interest. Even the mysterious Voidwalkers, who rarely involved themselves in galactic politics, turned their attention toward Sol. Captain Thyra Blackwood stood on the deck of the ESV Times Retribution *, humanity's first true warship built from captured alien technology. The vessel was a hybrid of human engineering and Corthani biotech, capable of faster-than-light travel and armed with both kinetic weapons and captured energy systems. "Ma'am," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Chen, "we're detecting hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. Multiple contacts, approaching fast. How many? Computer estimates. Jesus. 1,500 ships, ma'am. It's not just the Corthani. I'm reading Viridian signatures, Aquarian bioships, and something else. Something big. The largest fleet in galactic history was approaching Earth, but this time the aliens weren't coming to conquer a primitive world. They were coming to test themselves against the species that had achieved the impossible." Admiral Zexhai found himself in the unprecedented position of commanding a multi-species armada. The Corthani High Council, desperate to restore their damaged reputation, had formed an alliance with 6 other galactic powers. Their mission was simple: demonstrate that the human victory had been a fluke. Remember, he broadcast to the combined fleet. The humans excel at improvisation and surprise attacks. They will use unconventional tactics. Do not underestimate them again. But as the massive fleet dropped out of hyperspace, they found a solar system transformed. Gone were the chaotic debris fields and makeshift weapons that had characterized the first battle. In their place was a coordinated defense network that demonstrated just how quickly humans could adapt. The first wave of kinetic projectiles came from Mars, where humanity had built mass drivers capable of launching asteroids at significant fractions of light speed. The projectiles had been in flight for weeks, timed to arrive just as the alien fleet emerged from hyperspace. Admiral Zexhai watched in growing dismay as the first salvo tore through his forward formations. The humans had learned precision instead of clouds of random debris. They were now firing targeted projectiles designed to maximize damage to specific ship types. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered, but the humans had anticipated that as well. The second wave came from the asteroid belt, where automated platforms launched a coordinated barrage that forced the alien fleet into a deadly crossfire. The Viridian command ship Times Crystal Shard Times disintegrated when a precisely aimed chunk of metallic asteroid punched through its shields. The Aquarian bioship Times, Living Ocean Times, found its organic hull compromised by what appeared to be modified industrial mining charges that somehow disrupted its cellular structure. But it was the flagship of the ethereal Dominion that provided the most shocking moment of the battle. The massive vessel, protected by energy shields that could deflect stellar radiation, simply stopped functioning when a single, small projectile struck its hull. "What happened to the Time's eternal light asterisk?" demanded Admiral HFY. "Sir," reported his scanner operator, "the projectile appears to have been some kind of computer virus. In physical form, the ethereals are reporting complete system failures across their ship." Dr. Nakamura's viral logic bomb had worked even better than expected. Embedded in a titanium shell and delivered at high velocity, the human consciousness pattern had infected the ethereal ship's quantum computer networks, causing cascading failures that left the massive vessel drifting helplessly. As the galactic fleet struggled to adapt to humanity's new tactics, Earth revealed its final surprise. The ESV Times, Retribution Times, and 12 sister ships emerged from behind the moon, their hybrid human Corthani technology allowing them to engage the enemy fleet directly. Captain Blackwood studied her tactical display with grim satisfaction. "All ships. This is Retribution. Engage at will. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting to prove that humanity belongs among the stars." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human ships, crewed by pilots who had learned to think in 3 dimensions during atmospheric flight, outmaneuvered vessels designed by species that had evolved in different gravitational environments. The hybrid technology worked flawlessly. Human intuition and aggression, combined with alien technology and firepower, created a fighting force that neither species could have achieved alone. The Times, Retribution Times, danced between enemy formations, its human crew making tactical decisions too quickly for the aliens' coordinated command networks to counter. Lieutenant Chen called out targets as they appeared on his sensors. "Ma'am, Corthani heavy cruiser bearing 27 Mark IV. They're trying to flank the Yorktown." "Copy that. Helm, intercept course. Weapons, prep the logic torpedo." The logic torpedo was humanity's newest innovation, a physical projectile containing a compressed AI designed to infiltrate and disrupt alien computer networks. When it struck the Corthani cruiser's hull, the ship's bio-neural networks began executing human thought patterns, causing the vessel to literally think itself into paralysis. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as humanity demonstrated that its first victory had been no accident. The species that the galaxy had dismissed as primitive had evolved into something unprecedented, a race of warriors who could adapt alien technology, think faster than galactic computers, and fight with a desperate creativity that no other species could match. Admiral HFY found his flagship surrounded by the wreckage of ships from 6 different species. The humans had not merely defeated the largest fleet in galactic history. They had done it while suffering minimal losses of their own. "Admiral," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship." On screen, Captain Blackwood's image appeared on the main viewer, her uniform pristine despite the battle raging around them. "Admiral HFY," she said, her voice carrying the confidence of a species that had just proved itself. "You came here to test humanity's resolve. Consider it tested. You have 1 hour to withdraw your surviving ships from our system. Any vessel that remains will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. You cannot defeat the entire galaxy. Human. Maybe not," Blackwood admitted with a slight smile. "But we can make the cost of trying so high that no one will want to pay it. Your move, Admiral." As the surviving alien ships began their retreat, they left behind more than just wreckage. They left behind the knowledge that humanity had become something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that grew stronger with every challenge, more dangerous with every defeat they suffered. In the years that followed, word would spread through every corner of galactic space. Approach the Sol system at your own risk. The humans were no longer prey. They had become predators, and they were hunting for new technology, new challenges, and new reasons to prove that their place among the stars had been earned through fire and blood. 5 years after the Second Battle of Sol, Ambassador Zeltaran of the Galactic Council stood before the assembled representatives of 43 species, his crystalline form reflecting the nervous energy that filled the great chamber. The agenda contained only one item: the formal recognition of the Sol Quarantine Zone. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. We are here to address what many consider the greatest threat to galactic stability in recorded history. Not a plague, not a cosmic disaster, but a single species that has fundamentally altered the balance of power in our galaxy. The holographic display behind him showed a three-dimensional map of local space. A sphere of red warning indicators surrounded the Sol system, extending outward for nearly 20 light-years. Within that sphere, marked by the scattered debris of dozens of ships, lay the wreckage of every fleet that had dared to challenge humanity since their first victory. The humans, Zeltaran continued, have established what they call a defense perimeter. Any military vessel entering this zone without explicit permission from Earth Command is destroyed. No exceptions, no survivors, no warnings. Counselor Vash of the Hegemony, a species that had once ruled 17 systems, shifted uncomfortably in her biomechanical chair. Ambassador, surely you exaggerate. A single pre-FTL species cannot possibly maintain such absolute control over that volume of space, can't they? Exeltaran activated another display, showing recent intelligence reports. 3 months ago, the Dominion sent a stealth reconnaissance probe to observe human activities in the outer Sol system. The probe was detected, captured, and returned to Dominion space with a message encoded in its memory banks. The message appeared on the screen in flowing text. We know you're watching. We're watching you too. Stay outside the red line, and we'll get along fine. Cross it, and you'll join the collection. The collection? Asked Counselor Vash. Ship's graveyard. Admiral Zexhai spoke from the Korthani delegation, his voice carrying the weight of bitter experience. Humanity has been collecting our technology for 5 years. Every ship we lose makes them stronger. Every tactic we try teaches them new ways to kill us. The displays shifted to show intelligence footage from the Sol system's outer reaches. Massive industrial platforms orbited the gas giants, mining operations that had transformed Jupiter's moons into factories. The asteroid belt had been completely reorganized, turned into a manufacturing complex that produced warships at an impossible rate. How many ships do they have now? Someone asked. Admiral Zexhai's mandibles clicked slowly. Conservative estimates suggest 1,200 combat vessels, all incorporating technology stolen from defeated fleets. But it's not the ships we should fear. It's how they think. He gestured to his aide, who activated a recording from the Battle of the Void Reaper's last stand. The footage showed the final moments of the galaxy's most feared mercenary fleet, their ships dying one by one in the depths of space beyond Mars. The Void Reapers were specialists in asymmetric warfare, Zexhai explained. They had never lost a battle in 300 years of operation. They attacked the human outer colonies expecting easy prey. Watch what happens. The recording showed the mercenary fleet emerging from hyperspace near Europa. Their stealth systems engaged and their weapons powered. For a moment, it seemed they had achieved complete surprise. Then space itself seemed to come alive. What the Reapers had mistaken for empty space was actually a carefully prepared killing field. Humanity had learned to hide weapons platforms inside asteroid fragments, to disguise warships as mining vessels, to turn their own industrial infrastructure into a weapon of war. The ambush was total and devastating. The Void Reapers, masters of surprise attacks, found themselves surrounded by enemies that had been waiting for them to arrive. Their stealth technology, designed to fool energy-based sensors, was useless against the gravitational detection networks that humanity had developed. 17 ships destroyed in 43 minutes, Zexhai reported. No survivors. No distress calls. The humans captured their flagship intact and downloaded their entire tactical database. Within days, human ships were using Void Reaper strategies against other targets. The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed the implications. The humans weren't just winning battles. They were evolving at a rate that made adaptation impossible for their enemies. There's more, Zeltaran said, activating another display. Last year, the ethereal Dominion attempted to establish a monitoring station in the Centauri system, just outside human space. The station lasted 18 hours. The recording from the Centauri incident showed a sight that had become all too familiar to galactic intelligence services. The monitoring station, protected by the most advanced shields the ethereals could deploy, simply vanished in a burst of exotic energy. The humans had arrived not with a fleet, but with a single vessel. One that appeared to phase in and out of normal space-time. "They've weaponized quantum tunneling," reported Chief Scientist Mordan of the Ethereal Dominion. "Our analysis suggests they've somehow combined our phase technology with Corthani bioneural networks and Aquarian organic computers. The result is a ship that can literally step through dimensions to bypass any defense." "Impossible," snapped Counselor Vash. "No single species can master 3 different technological paradigms." "Tell that to the humans," Zexhai replied grimly. "They don't just learn our technology, they improve it. They combine it in ways we never considered. They think differently than we do." Dr. Sarah Kim, now Director of Human Xenological Development, stood in the war room of Luna Base, studying intelligence reports gathered by humanity's growing network of spy satellites and infiltration probes. The galaxy thought they were watching Earth, but humanity had been watching them for years. "Analysis complete," reported Arya, the artificial intelligence that had grown from Dr. Nakamura's original viral logic bomb programs. "Galactic Council is meeting today to discuss formal recognition of the quarantine zone." "Let them," Kim replied, gesturing to the holographic display showing human expansion beyond Sol. "While they argue about containing us, we're already beyond containment." The truth was more staggering than any alien intelligence service suspected. Humanity hadn't remained confined to Sol system. They had built their industrial base there while secretly expanding outward. Hidden colonies now existed in 17 systems, protected by stealth technology that made them invisible to galactic sensors. "Arya, show me the status of Project Dandelion." The AI obliged, displaying a map that would have terrified the Galactic Council. Humanity had been seeding the galaxy with automated probes for 3 years. Each probe contained manufacturing systems capable of building weapons, platforms, communication networks, and even colonies given sufficient time and resources. 43 seed systems have achieved basic infrastructure, Arya reported. Estimated time to full military readiness: 2 years, 4 months. Probability of galactic detection before completion: less than 3%. Kim smiled grimly. The galaxy was so focused on containing humanity to Sol system that they had missed the larger strategy. Humans were everywhere now, hidden in plain sight, building their strength in the dark spaces between the stars. Back in the council chamber, Ambassador Zeltaran was reading the final casualty reports from recent human encounters. In the past 18 months, 7 different species have attempted to establish military presence near human space. The results are always the same: total fleet annihilation, no survivors, and detailed intelligence about our capabilities, somehow reaching Earth Command within hours. "How do they gather intelligence so quickly?" asked a delegate from the Synthesis Collective. Admiral Zexhai answered with the weariness of someone who had studied the enemy for too long. "They capture our ships intact and download everything: crew memories, computer databases, tactical procedures. Then they release the information to all human colonies simultaneously through some kind of instantaneous communication network." "That's impossible. Faster than light communication requires quantum entanglement paired with organic neural networks," interrupted Zexhai. "They combined our quantum communication technology with captured Aquarian biocomputers. Every human ship, every colony, every outpost is connected in real time. They share information faster than we can act on it." The final presentation came from Intelligence Operative Thys, Zexhai's former scanner operator, who had become the galaxy's leading expert on human tactical doctrine. "Honored delegates," she began, "I have studied humanity for 5 years. I have analyzed every battle, every strategy, every innovation. My conclusion is simple. We cannot win a conventional war against this species." "Explain," demanded Counselor Vash. "Humans adapt faster than we can change tactics. They learn from every encounter, even defeats. More importantly, they have something we lack. They accept losses as learning opportunities rather than failures. Every time we kill one of their ships, they use the data to build better ships. Every time we think we understand their capabilities, they reveal new ones. This activated a final hologram showing human ship designs from the past 5 years. The progression was staggering, from crude hybrid vessels to sleek warships that incorporated technology from dozens of different species. Their latest vessels are superior to anything in our fleets, she continued. They can phase through solid matter, accelerate to relativistic speeds instantly, and coordinate attacks through a network that processes information faster than our best quantum computers. But the truly terrifying aspect is this: they're still improving. The vote to establish the Sol quarantine zone was unanimous. But privately, many delegates knew it was already too late. Humanity had grown beyond the need for quarantine. They had become something the galaxy had never faced before. A species that turned conflict into evolution, defeat into education, and war into opportunity. As the council session ended and delegates prepared to return to their home systems, few noticed the small probe that had been observing the proceedings from a maintenance shaft in the chamber's ceiling. The device, no larger than a grain of sand and completely undetectable by galactic sensors, had recorded every word spoken. Within hours, the recording would be transmitted through humanity's quantum communication network to every human colony and outpost in the galaxy. The leaders of Earth would know exactly how much the galactic powers feared them, and more importantly, they would know that their enemies had no effective strategy for dealing with the threat they posed. Captain Elena Vasquez, commanding the stealth ship ESV Times Ghostwalker *, received the intelligence data while on patrol 20 light-years beyond Earth. Her ship was one of 50 vessels conducting what humanity called deep reconnaissance, mapping galactic defenses, identifying industrial targets, and preparing for the day when Earth might need to expand its influence beyond the current quarantine zone. "Ma'am," reported her intelligence officer, "Council session confirms that galactic leadership considers us contained. They have no idea about our external colonies or deep reconnaissance operations." "Perfect," Vasquez replied, studying the star map that showed humanity's true area of influence. "Area. Transmit a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them the galaxy still thinks we're trapped in Sol system. Recommend acceleration of Dandelion Phase 2. Message transmitted, Captain." Vasquez smiled as she looked out at the stars through her ship's quantum phase window. The galaxy thought they had contained humanity to one small system. They had no idea that humanity was already among them, learning their weaknesses, mapping their territories, and preparing for the day when the quarantine zone would expand to encompass everything. The aliens had learned to fear the space around Earth, but they had not yet learned to fear the humans who now walked among them, invisible and patient, waiting for the right moment to remind the galaxy that humanity's place among the stars had been earned not through diplomacy or peaceful contact, but through the simple demonstration that any species foolish enough to threaten Earth would face consequences that made extinction seem like mercy. In the end, the galaxy's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating humanity's strength, it was assuming that strength could be contained.